Welcome back, everyone, to a True Crime Wednesday. Tonight, as you can see on the screen, we're yet again going to be talking about Kiely Rodni. Now, you can look at the title and you can say, well, homicide or accident? Haven't you just been proven it's homicide? Absolutely. That's what we're going to be looking at. So, as we do per show, anytime we're going to go cover something, let's go over the narrative. Okay, that's first and foremost what we need to do. So, if we look at the timeline, I have to adjust a couple things here. So, Maryland's Catwalk, it's actually like some kind of deli and market, actually, is where she was located at. Basically what is being said is this young girl who graduated high school early went to this summer high school graduation party, and basically she was there with a ton of people. From the photos you can see it definitely doesn't look like 200 or 300 people, but I digress. And that she essentially was drinking and all this, and then she ended up texting her mom, let her know she's going to be home a little after 12 or 12:30, something like this, and then she would be heading straight home, basically right after the party. But then we see at about 12:30, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, her phone completely just goes dead. And if you check the fire cam videos, it shows a vehicle go directly into Prosser Creek Reservoir. However, she was in the back, behind the back seat, and the back seat was all the way up. Now, she's a small girl, but they tried to say this was either an accident or it was on purpose. But either way, they have no evidence to go and suggest that it was foul play. Okay. That's the narrative. They just basically said that she went into the lake or the reservoir and her car flipped. And that's that. She just drowned to death. This is why we need to go over everything again, because I have yet again seen more and more and more people going along with the narrative. The narrative is wrong. It's easy to disprove the narrative. Now, that being said, tonight is not going to be an extremely long show, but I wanted to basically conclude this for the most part. We're not done with this case, but I am going to be moving on to some other cases just to liven up things. We're going to be looking at, I've heard that I should be looking at the Delphi case. I've got some other cases I've got a little more interest in, to be specific. It's not that I'm not interested in those cases, but it's basically, what I've been seeing, it's basically almost a case closed at this point. They've almost got everything handled. I don't know for sure. I haven't really looked at the case. But that being said, we're moving on to some other cases, as we need to go and have some other cases. We're going to go and start getting into some cryptology here pretty soon. So just forewarning, there will be a lot more cryptography. So we're going to be doing ciphers and things like this. But I'm getting a little off topic. So tonight is going to be the last Kiely Rodni case video for a bit. We are going to be moving on to others. So if we go and look over here at this autopsy, this is what they're claiming, is that Kiely had drowned. This is where things take a little interesting toll, because now we have to go and consider a couple things here. Did she drown? Or did she die prior? This says drowning. I want you guys to pay attention to things here. Her height, her weight. 5 foot 5 inches, and she's 103 pounds. She's real light. Now, this is where we bounce. We're going to be bouncing back into here, into the timeline. Because in the timeline, there was a part where we actually got the weight calculated out, and height and all this, and we got to go and get all these things figured out. She's 5'5", 65 inches long, or well, really 65 inches tall. She was cramped in the back seat, behind the back seat, which is 37.2 inches long. So she would have been pretty cramped. She's almost double that size. So why is somebody that is trying to kill themselves or did this on accident, how'd this happen? Especially when her ethanol levels, which somebody's drinking, their ethanol levels are going to be high. Hers were low. Like, it was low enough that all of it was it basically was being looked at as it was just from decomp. That's what the lab results were basically looking at. That it was most likely just decomp fluid. And that's where all this ethanol is coming from. But if your body's submerged, okay, you gotta remember, alcohol doesn't metabolize if you're dead, which means it has to be flushed out of the system. But to be flushed out of the system, you have to get water or other liquids and things like this into your body to go and flush it out. But there has to be some kind of a flow. Well, if you're dead, your body stops working. In fact, all the bacteria in your body starts to eat everything away. Well, alcohol is not one of those things they're going to start eating. Not immediately. But you look at her weight, 103 pounds. I want to bring this up real quick. So let's take a look at this. It is good to do this because sometimes you get some really interesting things here. So she was underweight. Based on this, your average female, according to rush.edu, at 5'5", as a female, she'd weigh 114 to 149 pounds. Let's dig into this website a little bit more, though. She's severely underweight. Now it's possible. I mean, you look at her, she's pretty frail looking. And of course, with through decomp fluid and all this, she's going to lose some weight. However, her weight, if she's gone for that long of time, this is why we have to look at the decomp time. When did she die? When is it a fair assumption that she died? There's a lot that is not being looked at when it comes to this case. And that's the problem. So let's take a look. See, this means she's underweight. We'd have to get her exact weight at the time before her death. And the weight loss is actually going to give us an indicator. That's another part we can actually take a look at when it comes to decomp time. There's a lot of factors when it comes to this, like I said. Then there's, of course, the water contents. How much salt is actually in there. And I know there's plenty of data out there to go and, from years prior and all this that would suggest, okay, well, there's a pretty decent amount of salt content in there. And, of course, it's not so high that wildlife can't live in there, allegedly, because allegedly there's fish that live in the reservoir. Just to show you. So I like to go and show proof live. Why? Because then who can really judge anything? So you start looking at what kind of fish are in there. You got brown trout. Oh, that's bad. So we've got brown trout that live in there. Now we'd have to look at these things like this. For instance, there's a certain salt content they can live in. It can't get above a certain amount, because if it gets above a certain amount, it kills the fish. It starts like suffocating them. It clogs their gills and things like that. I mean, it does all sorts of damage to them. So if we look at it, what else do we got? Now this is where you have to start looking at, we're not right there, so we can start looking at what kind of wildlife live at Prosser Creek Reservoir. So you have brown trout and you have rainbow trout. As brookies, I don't know what that is exactly. See, so we've got some interesting notes here. Now, this is going to give us, like I said, a hint at what the water content is like. You can't have too much chlorine in this water because that will kill the fish. In fact, your chlorine is going to have to basically, from what I understood, it's going to have to be basically almost at a minimum. You can have some, from what I understood, but you can't have a great deal of it. So therefore, as being a reservoir, this hypothetically could be being treated. But they're not going to treat it too heavily because there's wildlife there. Now, that also means a few other things here, because then you also look at the insects in the area. What do brown trout eat? What do rainbow trout eat? What do brookies eat? And then you start looking at the different insects that are there that are also going to give us more information about the water content. All these things matter. All these little details, they can really, really add up and they can give you quite a bit. Now, by knowing the water content, you can now figure out about how long it's going to take for her body to decomp. And when I say decomp, I mean like eat away, basically. Is it going to go and help the bacteria in the body, or is it going to kill the bacteria in the body? Is it going to slow the process, or is it going to increase the process? Then you got to look at the temperature. There's all sorts of other factors that get into this, but you could break this down, and you can find this just from looking at mostly at the wildlife. So then you can get a gauge. By using a gauge, then you can start looking at the time frame. This is where things get a little weird. Her body was, it wasn't even barely even into early decomp. Like you could see it was in decomp, it was definitely decomping, but her body wasn't decomping a whole lot, which means weight loss wouldn't have been severe. So she was probably around, if I had to guess, probably about 107 to maybe 100, maybe 105 to 107, I would guess would probably be a fair assessment about what her weight was. So still underweight, but her body's not going through a whole lot of decomp. It's not breaking down. It's not reducing her weight. So she hadn't been there very long. Then you look at it. You look from the 6th to the 21st when it was when her body was found. That's 15 days. 16, arguably. So 16 days. How long is it going to take in pretty cold water for a body to decomp? Is it really going to take that 16 days for it just to do that much? Or should it be farther along? I don't have the answers at this point. I'm still looking into it, but lots of calculations you can go about with that. So what else do we know about this case here? Well, here's the fun one. So you can see there's a map up here. Well, let's take a look at another map. You can see where the party's located. Roughly top left. Then there's some cars parked down over here in almost dead center. Lower dead center, I should say. And then, of course, Kiely, she went out and she went into the lake right over there, or the reservoir right there. Now, it's quite a bit. That wouldn't be an accident. And for her to make it that far in, yeah, her car is going to be able to move on its own. And it's going to go farther into the lake, of course, because it's on a slope, so it makes sense. However, that being said, she had plenty of time to stop and could have stopped. And then we've also got the mysterious sock and shoe that was off. And just kind of there. And why would the police and everybody else start bringing attention to these two hoodies? It makes zero sense. Which one was she wearing? It's not really a whole lot you've got to go and side with the police on this. It's already very hard. It's pretty much, in fact, it is impossible to even side with the police here because the facts already shut them down. Now, I've heard 2 different stories where the party had taken place. I'd heard he was over at the campground. And then, of course, we have this scenario where they're saying, no, it was over here where it's circled party. There was this great big party for all these kids and all this. Why is there only a few pictures? Why is everybody being so quiet? Shouldn't people be more alarmed and trying to help and give the details as to what they remember? Maybe show some photos, videos, things like this. You'd figure. But they're not. Which begs the question, who's the guilty party here, really? Which one of these kids? Was it one of them, or is it somebody that was outside the party? Not to mention, then you hear the different accounts from people that were allegedly at this party. Kiely was arguing with a female there at the party. Other people are accounted for allegedly Jagger being down there, her ex-boyfriend or current, depending on who you hear it from. And others saying that she had already moved on. And then there's, of course, the people who've taken notice in Sammy, her friend, supposedly her best friend. Her statements, how she lies. It appears to be also done on purpose. Just go and watch her mannerisms when she speaks. Something happened. Why is Sammy lying? Is it because she's much older than Kiely and her friends, and that she probably knew all the other adults that were there? But she, as an adult, was also hanging out with these kids. Begs the question of morality, too. But this is the part I want to show you guys. Take a look at this depth map here of Prosser Creek Reservoir. You see it dips pretty freaking quick. It just plummets. After it gets to a certain point, it just... Not as fast as the initial slope of the beach, but pretty steep. And on top of that, the car flipped over. There was... The passenger seat window was broken, and then the window behind the driver was also, it was like halfway down, if I'm not mistaken, or all the way down, one of those. Why are they like that? Unless they wanted her to drown. Some food for thought. After that, of course, let's get right back into that timeline. You can see right here. Driver's side, rear window halfway down. Body was found behind the back seat right here. And then, of course, the front passenger side window is broken. Why was it broken? Was it while it was flipping? No, couldn't have. They're saying this is Kiely's body there.